The stench carried for miles, a warning of what was to come. Summer, 1462. You are a soldier in the most formidable army the world has ever known. You have witnessed empires fall. Now you march into a small, rebellious territory called Wallachia, expecting a swift victory. Then the air changes. It's not just the smell of death, but something else, something you can't identify. Your advance guard halts, and as you crest the hill you see it, a forest. But the trees are not trees. They are people, thousands of them, your fellow soldiers, lifted on wooden spikes, arranged in perfect, horrifying rows that stretch to the horizon. Some are long dead. Others still twitch, still make sounds. The Sultan who crushed Constantinople takes one look and orders a full retreat. Wide shot of a desolate landscape with distant, suggestive silhouettes. What kind of strategist engineers such a sight? And this is the part that should truly unnerve you. This was not the act of a madman. It was a cold, deliberate, and devastatingly effective tactic. The story you've heard about Vlad the Impaler is a lie, not because the events didn't happen, but because the truth is far more calculated. This is the real account of how one man weaponized horror to halt an empire. And by the end, you will understand that the true terror wasn't what he did to flesh, but what he did to the human psyche. Let's begin with a question few dare to ask. What shatters a person so utterly that they become capable of this? The year is 1442. Vlad is 11. His father, Vlad Dracula, has just struck a terrible bargain with the Ottoman Sultan. To secure his throne, he hands over his two youngest sons as living guarantees of his loyalty. So Vlad and his brother Radu are taken from their home and delivered to the Ottoman court. Opulent Ottoman palace interiors, they are given fine clothes, a superior education, military training. On the surface, it is a privilege. But look closer. This was not a scholarship. It was a masterclass in psychological control. For 6 formative years, Vlad watched his captors use fear as a precise instrument of statecraft. He saw how public executions could paralyze a population. He learned that terror, applied with focus, could outperform any army. And he learned his own powerlessness. While his brother adapted, Vlad defiantly resisted. Historical records suggest he was punished, perhaps brutally. The specifics are lost, but the outcome is clear. Something inside him fractured, or perhaps hardened. He developed what we might now call a profound persecution complex, fused with an absolute need for control. But he was also learning. Every punishment was a lesson. Every torture method, a note for his future arsenal. He was building a library of dread in his mind. In 1448, he returned to Wallachia. He was 17. Just 2 months later, his father was murdered by rival nobles. His older brother was buried alive. Vlad was alone, surrounded by enemies. And here the story intensifies. He didn't merely seek vengeance. He aimed to rebuild his world in the twisted image of his own trauma. He would take the Ottoman lessons in fear and refine them into something they could never have anticipated. But first, he had to bide his time. For 6 more years, he lived in exile, plotting his return. He was a student of terror, about to become its master. In 1456, with foreign support, he seized the Wallachian throne. The architect of nightmares was ready to begin his work. His coronation feast was not a celebration. It was a trap. He invited the noble families who had destroyed his own. They came, expecting to pledge fealty to a new prince. The hall was filled with music and wine. Then, Vlad stood and posed a seemingly innocent question. How many princes have you outlived? The nobles, proud of their political survival, boasted of 7, 10, a dozen rulers. Vlad smiled. Then he gave the order. Every boasting noble was seized. But note his methodical approach. He didn't just kill them. He separated them. The older, guilty ones were impaled outside the palace walls, their deaths drawn out over days. Their agonized cries were the backdrop for the others. The younger, stronger nobles were force-marched to a ruined castle and ordered to rebuild it with their bare hands. Most died from the effort. The survivors were broken men. Vlad hadn't just taken revenge. He had systematically erased the old power structure, and replaced it with a new one, born entirely from terror. This revealed a core truth about his psychology. He didn't want obedience. He wanted to break wills so completely that obedience was the only option left. But this was just the beginning. What he did next would echo across continents. In 1459, Sultan Mehmed II, the same Mehmed who had been Vlad's childhood companion, sent envoys demanding tribute and Vlad's personal submission. The envoys arrived, confident in their diplomatic customs. When they refused to remove their turbans, citing religious tradition, Vlad listened respectfully. Then he spoke words that would haunt them. "I admire a man who honors his faith so deeply. Let me help you honor it permanently." He ordered his guards to nail their turbans to their skulls. Consider the precision of this cruelty. He ensured they would survive the journey back to Constantinople. They were living, screaming messages. When Mehmed saw his mutilated envoys, he understood immediately. This was not the boy he knew. This was something new, something that had learned the Ottoman art of fear and had perfected it. War was now unavoidable, but before the armies clashed, Vlad had more lessons to teach. Impalement wasn't just death. It was a prolonged, psychological broadcast. The common image is misleading. A stake driven straight through kills quickly. That was not the goal. Vlad's method was a gruesome science. The victim was laid face down. A rounded, oiled stake was inserted, not through vital organs, but carefully angled to avoid them. The victim was then raised upright. Gravity did the rest, the stake slowly traveling through the body over hours or days. Why? Because witnessing prolonged suffering is infinitely more traumatizing than seeing a quick death. But the physical act was only part of the design. The staging was the real genius. He placed his victims along roads, outside cities, anywhere to maximize visibility. He created a grotesque social order, with peasants on low stakes and nobles on high ones. He arranged them in geometric patterns, circles, stars, transforming human agony into a statement of absolute, chilling control. A German pamphlet from the time claimed he ate his meals among the dying. Whether true or not, the message was clear. Your horror does not affect me. I am beyond your understanding. These stories spread, cementing his reputation. But did it actually work? Was this terror an effective strategy, or just sadism with power? The answer arrived in the summer of 1462, and it would prove his methods were not just effective, they were revolutionary. Sultan Mehmed had finally had enough. He assembled an army of up to 90,000 men. Vlad's forces numbered perhaps 30,000. A direct fight meant annihilation. So Vlad refused to fight conventionally. As the Ottomans advanced, they found nothing. Villages were empty, wells poisoned, fields burned. Vlad had ordered a scorched earth. His people vanished into the mountains. Then the night raids began. Small, specialized units struck Ottoman camps, killing sentries, burning supplies, and vanishing like ghosts. The goal was to breed paranoia and exhaustion. But his masterpiece was the night attack. Learning the Sultan's location, Vlad personally led 10,000 men in a daring assault on the heart of the Ottoman camp. They nearly reached Mehmed himself. The chaos was absolute. Though they failed to kill the Sultan, the psychological blow was devastating. The most powerful ruler on earth had been nearly assassinated in his own tent. The Ottoman command was shaken. Their supply lines were strained. And then they reached the capital. Faint, distorted moaning on the wind. What they saw there defied comprehension. A field of the Impaled, stretching for miles. Estimates range from 15,000 to 20,000 bodies. The smell was overwhelming. The stakes were arranged in precise, terrifying patterns. Some victims had been dead for weeks. Others were still alive, moaning softly. At the center, on the highest stake, was a captured Ottoman commander. Personal taunt to the Sultan. The hardened Ottoman veterans, men who had seen countless battles, reportedly vomited, wept, and deserted. Sultan Mehmed II stared at the horrific spectacle and, according to chroniclers, conceded, "It is not possible to take the country from a man who can do such things." He recognized he was facing a new kind of warfare, Within days, he ordered a full retreat. The mighty Ottoman army had been defeated, not by a great battle, but by a masterfully executed campaign of psychological destruction. Vlad the Impaler had won, but the ultimate tragedy was that the weapon he forged would eventually consume him. You would think defeating an empire would make him a hero, and for a moment it did, but Vlad could not turn it off. The terror that worked on the Ottomans, he now used on his own people. Merchants were impaled for high prices, nobles for suspected disloyalty. The tool for national survival became his only tool for daily rule. His support crumbled. His brother, backed by the Ottomans, positioned himself as a stable alternative. His Hungarian allies abandoned him. By the end of 1462, just months after his greatest victory, he was forced to flee. In a bitter twist, he was imprisoned by the Hungarian king. He spent 12 years in comfortable captivity, even starting a family. But in 1476, he was given one last chance, restored to the throne by allies who needed his brutal effectiveness. His final reign lasted barely 2 months. In late 1476 or early 1477, he was killed in a skirmish with Ottoman forces. The details are murky. Some say his own men struck him down. What is certain is his final fate. His head was cut off, preserved in honey, and sent to Constantinople as a trophy. The master of psychological warfare was reduced to a grisly display in the heart of the empire he fought. His body was lost to history. So what is his legacy? In Romania, he is a national hero who used necessary brutality to defend his homeland. To the world, he is Dracula, a supernatural monster. But that fiction lets us off the hook. The real horror is that Vlad was entirely human. He was forged by a system that taught him terror was power and ruthlessness was survival. He took those lessons to their logical, monstrous extreme. The forest of the Impaled was applied psychology. The night attack was a precision strategy. It was all horrifically, undeniably effective. The question isn't whether he was evil. The question is, what does his success tell us about the dark mechanics of power and the human mind's breaking point? To a dark, abstract shot of a crown on a map, if you are ready to confront more of history's uncomfortable truths that textbooks gloss over, make sure to subscribe to Untold Crime Stories, because understanding why darkness works is the knowledge we truly need. And if this story made you reconsider the nature of power, let us know by liking this video.